Hello, I'm Matthew Browning and thanks for joining us for the Catching Pen on Sky. Coming up tonight, a comprehensive look at the Silver Chief final. That's coming up at the Meadows tomorrow night, and boy, there's some promising greyhounds going around too. And also the Sydney Cup at Wentworth Park next Saturday night. We had the heats last night for the stayers in Sydney. Couple of upsets. The very smart Aussies Joker went down, but it's looming to be a very good final, and boy, the Victorians have got a strong hand. That's coming up on Saturday night. I'm delighted to have Peter Davis with me on the Catching Pen tonight. Good evening, Pete.
Matt, it's good to be working with you again. I haven't for a little while, but yeah, the Victorians gave it to us at Wentworth Park and at Angle Park on Thursday night. The NZers, we said here last week that they couldn't possibly do it. I lambasted them and said they weren't competitive, and they went 1, 2, 3 as Jayhawks did in the shorts yesterday.
I was a bit surprised by the result of the Sister City final there on Thursday night at Angle Park. The Kiwis have certainly been known for their strength when it comes to harness racing and thoroughbred racing, but to my knowledge anyway, they've never really been all that big into greyhounds. I mean, we haven't seen as many Kiwi greyhounds come over as we have seen, you know, Sunlines and Courage Under Fires.
Oh, absolutely, and in recent times, Wairua Marika came and stayed with Harry Hampson and won 8 or 9 races at Wentworth Park, Matt. But yeah, they're improving sharply. It must be stated that the dogs that won are being successful over there right now, and these dogs that came here, Token, etc., are Australian bred, but more strength to them to go to that next level and get these dogs and come back. And not only did they win the race, they ran fast time, so there was no fluke about it.
The reason I'm hosting the program tonight is that Hilton Donaldson has taken up a position, a race calling position with Sky Channel in South Australia. He is still staying with the company. We certainly didn't want to see him go too far, but he's heading to South Australia, and you'll be hearing a lot more of Hilton's race calling talents over the next couple of months. And also Dean Caparella will be joining from South Australia, will be joining Sky Channel in the next couple of weeks, joining the Sky team and also the Catching Pen. And we're linking up with a very proud Victorian now. We've started by giving the Victorians a rap, and Neil Brown is joining us from Melbourne. And welcome to you, Neil. How are you?
Yes, terrific, Matthew, and good evening to you and to you too, Pete.
It's going to be a terrific race, the Silver Chief, tomorrow night. I'm just wondering, is Trendy Lee the one to beat? Very fast in the semi, 29.86.
So it was a tremendous run, and the greyhounds always promised a lot. It's a wide open final though, a very interesting box draw, and it's a hard race to read, I think, Matthew, and there's plenty of chances in the race.
Neil, you've got a very special guest with you tonight, the trainer of one of the runners in the Silver Chief.
Yes, so we've got Dave Wetering with us tonight on the Catching Pen, and Dave, of course, the trainer of Frozen Keesey, who was the second fastest qualifier in 29.89. Thanks for joining us, Dave.
Thank you, Neil.
Now, Dave, you've been in greyhounds for how long?
About 10 years now. 10 years, Neil.
And had a lot of success in that time. Some tremendous greyhounds that you've brought or bred yourself and reared at your property down there in Keysborough.
Yeah, been pretty lucky. A few of them could run.
And Dave, just one of those good dogs some years back was Wedding Dress. She was a very talented bitch, won a good number of races at Sandown. Was that really the kick on you needed?
Yeah, Wedding Dress and Little Shawnee at the time. They were both the same age, reared them the same time, and they could both run. So that's sort of good dogs put you on the map.
And what brought you into greyhound racing initially? Was that just an interest from the family side of things, or what developed? Obviously, these first couple of good dogs kicked you on, but what got you started?
I actually raced pigeons for years. Dad raced pigeons. I was brought up with them, raced them for a few years and got sick of that. So I went and got my pilot's licence and flew a plane. And then I was up in the air one day, thought I want to get back into training something. So I bought a Greyhound Weekly and bought a pup off Steve Kavanagh and went from there. And that's how I got on with dogs. She won in town. She had 24 starts for 8 wins. So you got the bug then, you're hooked.
It's interesting you mentioned pigeon racing. Gary Young, who everyone knows through the Big Bad Dogs here in Sydney, and obviously nationally now because of his exporting of greyhounds interstate, he is very big into pigeon racing. Many of your pigeon colleagues involved in greyhound racing, as they seem to move that direction.
Yeah, there's a few around, like even Jimmy Paulson, who's got the red. He was very big into pigeons and very good at it too.
And of course some famous names, Dennis Reed and Joe Hillier were also pigeon racing fans in their time. So it does seem to be something there, doesn't it, Dave?
That's right. Once it's in your blood, you can't help it.
What is the connection, Dave? Is there a certain methodology of training, or is it just the need to win, or what is it that gets people going from one sport to the other?
I do think, because there's no jockey or driver behind them. With a greyhound and a pigeon, the animal's got to do it themselves. So you've got to get your point across to that animal to come home by itself.
Dave, you've had a number of good greyhounds over the years. What about Witch Honcho? Would that rate up there among the ones that you have a soft spot for?
Yeah, she's pretty special. What she did at Warrnambool, you dream about that when you first get started, and to do it as a small-time sort of concern, you wouldn't think it'd happen.
This was a big race, obviously the Classic, David. What was it worth then?
50,000.
And I suppose in a lifetime of racing greyhounds, you'd wish to win this, and you did it, you know, very early on.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah, when it happens, you just can't believe it.
And Dave, whatever became of Witch Honcho? Where did
you raced Witch Honcho with some mates of yours, didn't you, and sold them into the greyhound?
Yeah, I bought her and been friends for years with Dean and Mark. One's a carpenter, one's a plumber. Knocked around, they never had a dog. I said to them, I bought the best pup I've ever seen in my life. You boys can have it. I'll rear it for nothing. I'll train it. Just keep us together. So we did that and we had a ball.
Dave, I reckon another greyhound that you've had over the years that you'd probably have pretty fond memories of, Worthy Hunter. You had a lot of fun with that one.
He was a champion. I've got a soft spot for him still. Yeah, he's something special he was, but he didn't like chasing too hard. That was his trouble.
We're just watching him record a track record at Ballarat over 550 metres some time ago. What became of Worthy Hunter, Dave?
He went on, he won at Sandown over the sprint and distance, won at Wentworth Park, broke 43 over 700, just raced him right through, but the dog wouldn't chase till he got the rails, so it was just a funny dog, but because he had that sort of nature, he was special, I didn't mind.
Why don't we move on to more important things, and of course you've got Frozen Keezy lining up tomorrow night in that very prestigious race at the Meadows for the young greyhounds, the Silver Chief. Tell us about Frozen Keezy. Lightly raced, but showing plenty of promise.
Yeah, he's lightly raced because he took a while to mature. He's been in the kennel for probably 6 or 8 months, but he just wasn't ready to race. And then the last couple of months he started putting the hammer down, so start racing him.
Did anything really make the penny drop, David? Like, was there just a mature thing? Like, did he seem puppyish or...?
Just puppyish, Mark. He just wasn't ready. He wanted to play all the time, but in the last 2 months, he just started to mature. He wants to go to work now. So that's when you start him.
You give yourself a serious chance tomorrow night?
If I had the red, I'd be a lay down, I reckon. But off the pink, very hard. He wants the rails. He's desperate for it, and he'll probably crash in. Really, the race is sort of set up for the red. Can he run, the way I see it?
Well, we've had a fair bit happening in the greyhound world lately, and we've got a lot coming up too, so let's bring our viewers up to date with the racing news, and we'll start with the Victorian racing news while Neil Brown is with us, and also Dave. Greyhound Racing Victoria merchandise is now on sale. What's on offer, do you know?
It certainly is. There's T-shirts, there's hats, there's a spray jacket, and they're available from the Greyhound Racing Victoria. Now, the spray jacket, a steal for mine at $39.95, so there's a fair bit of merchandise going around in Victoria, and you've got to applaud them for the professional outlook they've taken. It certainly looks terrific, and you'd suggest that a lot of participants are going to take up the offer of this stuff that's reasonably priced.
Well, we're used to seeing the English and Irish horses arriving, but now the English and Irish greyhounds are coming as well, Pete.
Yeah, they're now here, and they're at a quarantine centre at Spotswood, and the maintenance team headed by Ron Eisen and Tom McPherson of looking after the dogs. Neil, you can tell us a bit about that?
Yes, the Irish greyhounds. We had Droopy Zola arrive last week, and last Thursday, the week before last Thursday, the 2 Irish greyhounds flew in, Coolfatter Flyer and Tina Joe, which were purchased by the Irish board. They are in the quarantine station now, and they got their own slipping track and everything out there, so they'll be well looked after. And the Americans fly in from Los Angeles on this coming Tuesday. They are raced by Pat Dalton. They're Irish bred greyhounds that have raced over there in the States. One greyhound's called Southern Champ, and a very smart bitch called Gentle Memory. She's won about $34,000 in stake money over there. It's a very difficult process to get the greyhounds here. I spoke with Pat Dalton in Rhode Island on Friday. 37 pages of paperwork, and got to be signed up by vets and all sorts of things. And I think Pat had 7 greyhounds microchipped in February, and he was down to 2, which he really took away from the racetracks a couple of months ago for them to race in this series. So Pat's really supported this concept well, hasn't he? And good luck to him with these greyhounds. And it'll be interesting to see how the USA dogs stack up through the Super Dog series.
Do you think any of them will stay, as we've seen other dogs, like last year's dogs, continue on here, Neil, or are they earmarked to go back?
I think the Irish greyhounds may stay here. Robert Britton will train the Irish, and Carl Haas is training Droopy Zola for Nicky Chambers, because Nicky's hoping that something happens here at Flemington on the first day in September with, and the first day in December with, I'll get that right, I think it's November.
That'll be your Melbourne Cup of the
I don't know much
equine
about
sort.
horse racing, do I? Far Cry, and Far Cry the favourite for the Melbourne Cup. But I think the Irish may stay. The USA dogs can go back because they've got a similar period of time in quarantine with 1 month, but they may be left here to race. It depends on how they go. But Robert Britton will train the Americans as well.
Continuing with the news and the Geelong Cup heats, Pete, a good greyhound has always managed to come through this series, at least one. You look back through the years and they've had some really, you know, top-class dogs there.
Well, the actual Cup finals are as good as you'll see on a one-turn track anywhere in the country, and Noms closed next Tuesday at 9 a.m. with Greyhound Racing Victoria, open to the best 64, and I think you'll get plenty of New South Wales dogs, even Queenslanders going for this 25,000 of the winner heat and final series.
And the greyhound adoption program continues to be very successful in Victoria.
Well, at the recent Melbourne show, they had something like was it $600 or $700 600 or 700 inquiries into the greyhound adoption program. So it's really getting an impetus out of the greyhound racing perspective. So the general public is really learning a lot about this, and it's going to be a huge plus for retired greyhounds to find a nice, comfortable home.
All right. Anything else to report there, Neil?
No, the adoption program is going very well. There's a lot of interest. It's been well and truly promoted by Greyhound Racing Victoria, and it's just increasing in numbers and its awareness of the public out there. It's a tremendous program, the GAP program. It's going well.
Well, very soon on the Catching Pen we'll be reviewing each and every Silver Chief heat from last Monday night, and most importantly trying to tip you the winner. But as we take a short break on the Catching Pen, it's time for this week's Brainbuster. And tonight we're asking, name the greyhound that was sensationally withdrawn from the Melbourne Cup final. It was 1986 after a sensational mishap in the car park.